All right, I guess I am live now. Let me turn off all notifications right now. All right, greetings. May grace, mercy, and peace be yours in abundance. I'm addressing all those who call upon the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who hope in His vicarious sacrifice and His offering for their salvation. Now, today we're going to be talking something that is, boy, so hot, so very hot, and I've been trying to avoid addressing this subject because I understand just how inflammatory and provocative, because the whole issue of vaccines and anti and pro is just so divisive and so forth. And I've already addressed, at least made my position clear, especially with a view to conspiracy theories around the vaccinations and such things as that. But today, I want to talk about the phenomenon. It's my observation. I believe it to be true. I don't have an exhaustive, objective stats, but what I notice is that there are so many anti-vaxxers among Christians, or the other way around, so many Christians seem to be decidedly, with full dedication and zeal, vehemently anti-vax. And across the board, I'm talking Christians, just even in the broader sense of the word, and both here, on my side of the pond and in Russia, among evangelicals, in Russian Orthodox people, there's just so many anti-vax sentiments among religious people. So I'm not going to be talking a lot about why we should be pro-vax, even though this is my position and so forth. I'm not going to be deriding or making light of necessarily of the anti-vax position. I want to talk about the root causes, or what causes the religious mind to be disposed towards such sentiments. So what is it that makes Christians to be susceptible or otherwise disposed to being anti-vax? And I noticed this among Russian-speaking Christians, my American brethren, and Sovereign Grace Baptists, even Reformed people. Majority of them, very rarely I encounter somebody who is pro-vax, and usually they'll be kind of timid about their position, because as soon as they raise their voice, they immediately get stoned, because it appears to be, again, based on my limited observation, that anti-vax position has somewhat developed into a confessional status among Christians, as though it is almost among the articles of faith that you're supposed to believe. If you're a Christian, if you're regenerate, you must be. And some people even stated that. Let me tell you something that took place about, I can't recall, maybe a couple of months ago. One person who used to be my friend here on Facebook, and not just a contact, but we've had good discussions and fellowship. They even helped me some, even financially, donated for my ministry and so forth. And they just kicked me out of their friends list. And why I asked them as to why, the reasons, they said, well, they gave me an explanation. They basically said that in their eyes, I was a false prophet. Believe it or not, I was branded a false prophet, and because I hold to what I do concerning the inoculations, that there are a fairly tested way of checking this very dangerous infection that we're having now, the COVID-19, that it's almost the only thing that we can do to check this pandemic is by using vaccinations. And she said, well, if you were regenerate, you would have known that it's just the whole narrative is false. It's all created to kill us all. It's just the vicious device of the global elites and so forth. It's just, and they said they couldn't understand how any believing person could believe the official narrative about vaccinations. They said, well, I surmise that you're an unregenerate, let alone, you can't even, you can't preach the gospel, you can't, because it's the lack of, they said, you display a total lack of discernment if you believe vaccinations be just an instrument to fight this viral disease. That is just, if you buy into that, it means that you're steeping in a lie, and no truth is of the lie. Therefore, you're an unregenerate person, perhaps reprobate. So the left and several other persons said basically the same thing in different languages. They say, well, certainly Christians cannot be pro-vaxxers and so forth. And sorry, I'm having this bronchitis, not quite over it. So it's a hot issue, you know it, and many Christians are just plain scared because it's become sort of a cult. I mean, you have to be anti-vax, otherwise you're not Christian. So, and I decided, well, how we approach that? What makes people, religious people, Christians, across the board, disposed to this sort of thing? What causes that? So I've been thinking about it quite a bit, and I thought, well, should I talk about this? Just offer my thoughts. I'm not being dogmatic. I'm not claiming any infallibility or the last word of orthodoxy on the subject by any means. You know, I don't presume to be anybody and to have any exhaustive knowledge on anything, but basically, my principle is my foundation for this particular rant. It's no sermon. I'm not going to deal with scriptures a whole lot, but just the overall justification for this particular message is found in the book of Proverbs in chapter 27 and verse 17. You know this famous verse which says, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. And you know how in all the times, and even today, sometimes in some cultures, you see that people kind of hone the knives against each other. So that way they kind of, they sharpen. So the iron sharpens. This is the picture of what's going on here. So a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. Again, it's just the suggestions, the thoughts which may provoke further thinking on the subject. That's all I'm trying to achieve in this particular rant of mine. So let me look at, I got some notes just so I don't get sidetracked because there's so much. So my question tonight is, what is it about the religious mind, about the mind of so many Christians, okay, and religious without any, derogatory, I'm not belittling the word, at this point, just the religious mind, what makes it susceptible or a fertile ground for conspiracy theories? Some of them are really wild, just flat out, tinfoil hat, conspiracy theories. Why? What is it that it is true that so many Christians are anti-vax? What is it? Does it have anything to do with Christianity per se? So, I've been thinking about this thing. So, and then a lesser question is, why talk about it at all? Well, because people say, I have this Telegram channel, and some of my Russian friends have said, look, let's not talk about it. You've already addressed vaccination. It's just going to divide and so forth. People will be upset with you. And it'll be. I said, look, just hold on your stones, because I'm not necessarily pushing the pro-vax side of the story at this point. I'm just trying to look at the roots and just to go a little bit deeper. This is my concern. I'm not trying to get anybody upset at this point, but I'm just hoping to get to the bottom of the issue, and I'm offering my explanation. And otherwise, people, if we never talk about real life issues, like somebody said, well, just stick to the Christological explanation of the Psalms. You do that beautifully. Just stick to that. Just, preach the high Christology from the Psalms. We all love that. And it's just, yeah, I do that, and I will continue to do so, hopefully, Lord willing, that I don't die tonight or tomorrow. This is what I'm here for, but sometimes we need to address the so-called real life issues, because people do get worked up, and this issue does divide. Like I've been branded a false prophet. This is a pretty serious allegation. So we got to talk about this, friends. So, all right. So this phenomena of prevalence of anti-vaccination sentiments in religious circles among Christians in the broadest sense of the word, and more often so than in non-religious circles. You notice that it's in society at large, be it American or Russian or elsewhere, you have sort of almost kind of 50-50. Maybe not, but but you have sort of some say pro, some say anti-vax, but it's kind of, there is some there's a little bit of difference of opinion, but among Christians it's almost universally anti-vax. So and some of their objections, that from anti-vax people appear valid, and they're not necessarily tenfold hand, okay? Well, let's deal with those. Let's clear the ground, shall we? All right. Some of the things that people say, and I've listened to arguments, and I've read some articles and so forth. I'm far from being knowledgeable on the subject. I'm just a simpleton, a pedestrian, and so forth. But what I hear is that, I hear that there are some legitimate concerns. I don't consider them necessarily tinfoil hat theories. For instance, especially my American friends, they say, look, we just distrust, we don't trust our government one bit, because they lie to us continuously. They lie, and lie again. And we don't believe any official narrative. We always, doubt, hold everything in suspicion. Well, let's take some other independent sources in order to find out what's going on. And that's kind of healthy. And I understand that the governments do lie. We have the same problem here as well, and so forth. So it is kind of healthy to be skeptical about the official narrative. So there's nothing wrong with that healthy dose of skepticism about any officially presented narrative. That's fine. Also, people say, look, we're not big pharma. What about big pharma? Do you think they're out there for our good? No, they're to make profit. And that's true too. And I understand that, especially in the so-called free market, i.e. capitalistic economy, where the filthy lucre rules, where the main reason for everything that is taking place is covetousness, because that's the overriding principle of capitalism, is just to make more money. And since big pharma are big corporations, their ultimate goal is not to make people healthy, but rather to make them to continue to buy from them their products, i.e. their meds. So they're interested in setting you all on medication lists, so that you'd be needing to buy something in order that they may become even wealthier than they are. This is capitalism. It is amoral. It's not necessarily immoral. It is amoral, because the profit is all that counts in pure capitalism. And that's a problem with pure capitalism. But I'm not here to push any Marxist agenda, because I'm no Marxist either, even though I come from the part of the world where it used to be the Soviet Union and such things as that. But it's just my judgment that in capitalism, if money is all that counts, of course people are ready to do anything to make more profit. So that makes sense. And so we, watch out for those mercenary reasons for the big corporations, and also of course, the official media controlled by those big, huge corporations. They also lie. They say we're not. Therefore, we don't trust what CNN or MSNBC and all of those huge outlets are telling us, because they're full of BS. And I understand that, and that's kind of a healthy approach. However, excuse me, and here's where the conspiracy thing comes in. Usually, the rational approach to explanation of anything that's taking place is to find shorter venues or ways of explaining. For instance, I've used this example. I don't know if it'll translate well into the English context. We have this funny saying. It sounds anti-Semitic. It just shows that they're, conspiracy-minded people. That if there's no water in the faucet, okay, if you ain't got no water in the system, that's because the Jews have drunk all water. That saying. So this is the glaring instance of the conspiracy attempt to explain, because the usual explanation, more probable, is that, well, probably something in the main, something along the line, maybe the pump is down or something happened. So they had to cut it off temporarily, and that's the explanation of why you don't have the water in your house, okay? So that's the sort of the normal way of proceeding. It's also the most natural way of trying to explain a situation. But the conspiracy always uses some deep kind of... They also have the, what's it called? Cause and effect. There's always a cause and effect chain, but the conspiracy chain is always longer. And it takes many turns and goes deep into the ground. It is not easily seen. It takes a really illuminated person, somebody who's not a sheeple, somebody in the know, who will tell you or not what really is going on with these vaccines and so forth. And when you listen to them, you sort of, given the greediness of the corporations and how immoral those, the elites are, it is probable in the long run. So you begin to buy into this conspiracy stuff. Now, but the question is, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. What is it about the religious mind that makes us susceptible to the conspiracy theories? Well, the phenomenon of not fully rational or paradoxical thinking among Christians. All right? This is easily observable, and you will agree with me, whether you agree with my general conclusions or not, beside the point right now, but you will agree that most churches, all right, both in the States and elsewhere, and here in Russia, are, I would say, not very rational in their approach to religion. It is almost that when you enter any church building, almost any, you're required to leave your rationality at the door or outside of the church building, because you don't actually expect to hear much rational explanation or preaching or anything of the sort in the religious context. Because by definition, religion is a religion of the heart. You don't understand it with your mind, it is with your heart. It is the religion of experience, of feelings, of encounter with God, of religious experience. Okay? People walk into almost any church, sit down at a pew, and they begin to hear self-contradictory utterances from the preacher or priest or parson, whoever, teaching elder. They'll say, well, God loves you. It's a wonderful plan for your life, and you're certainly going to go to hell if you don't accept this offer. Everything's been done, but it all depends on you finally. God is all powerful. He's already done it all, but He can't enter your heart unless you let Him, and so forth. So it's been taught in most of the established churches, both in the States and in here and elsewhere, that religion is contradictory, paradoxical, and therefore non-rational. And people have been accustomed, taught to expect nothing consistent in the realm of religion, because they've grown to understand that religion is something that people make contradictory statements all the time. That God loves you so much that He will certainly send you to hell if you do not accept His offer of His love. And you will be burning in hell forever if you're not aware of His great love to you. And such things as that. And this actually, the late John Robbins has a great lecture on what he calls the feminization of the church. And the roots, as far as historicity, of this non-rational, contradictory approach to Christianity, he traces those tendencies back to the mid-1800s. That was in the 19th century, where the German liberal theologians, Friedrich Schleiermacher, and the Danish philosopher and also churchman of the Danish State Lutheran Church, the man by the name Søren Kierkegaard, they both taught that religion is the realm of the heart. They begin to make this Neoplatonic separation between the head and the heart. It doesn't matter the confessions, what you believe, and so forth. All those things are irrelevant. It's a matter of religious experience. It's what you feel, okay? It's what you experience. The religion of the heart. And they begin to make this separation between the alleged inches, 20 or how many inches between the head and the heart. And some people never cross the bridge. They get it in their head, but never with their heart, and so forth. All this unscriptural division between the head and the heart. And Robbins says that was one of the stages of the feminization of the church. It's not just the women becoming more and more prominent in the existing Protestant mainline denominations, first being assigned to leading maybe the women's prayer group, then being assigned greater roles, then finally deacons, female deacons, and lo and behold, half a century later, full-blown pastors and teachers, and so forth. And it's not just that side, but also the mindset of a non-rational, sensational, in terms of it's all by feelings approach to the religion. And with this mindset, where it no longer matters what you think, the clarity of thought, the consistency, non-contradiction, all those things were considered junk. It's just dead religion. Let's have a hard religion. We got to experience with your heart and so forth. Everybody is, emphasizing the need of the heart, forgetting that in scriptures, the heart is not just this pump thing which pumps up the blood and blood circulation in your body. The heart is the seat of all thoughts, intentions of the whole person. It is, as the man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And it's from the heart proceed evil thoughts, idolatrous, adulterous, evil intentions, as Jesus explains. Those things which proceed from within the man, they defile the man, make him sinful. It is from the heart the mouth speaketh. So we understand that those of us who read the Bible and believe according to the Bible, nevertheless, many churches make this a scriptural separation, and so many churchgoers and members are taught that when they get, and this is a real dichotomy in their real life elsewhere, at their workplace, they operate quite rationally. They think about how much it'll cost, whether it's cost proficient or not, whether I should go there, or will I have enough gas in my tank if I do so? How about if I take this route? It appears more efficient. People are well thought out everywhere else but the church, because in the church you are supposed to lay down and leave your mind, your rational mind, at the door, and you enter into a different realm of religious experience where you have people just talking nonsense. God loves you and He certainly will send you to hell if you don't receive it. And people thought, all right, this is religion. You don't think with your head in religion, because it's just sort of something that you do. It gives you good feelings and some warmth inside, and soothes your conscience, all psychological effects. So I think that's, at least in part, it explains why religious folks are so susceptible to conspiracy theories and this anti-vax position. Again, I'm not here to criticize necessarily, but some of the explanations, boy, you've got to at least you've got to admit that some of the theories, that boy, it's the number of the beast, and that you can't self. That I've heard one completely insane, absurd conspiracy explanation of the vaccines, that the vaccines are created. Well, first of all, let's say, the vaccines are created to kill the sheeple. To kill more people. I said, well, the COVID is already doing that. I said, well, not enough. And so, see, the vaccines will finish the process off. And I said, well, who will dig the trenches for the deep state? I mean, if there's no longer any sheeple, but only the smart guys who understand, who are in the know, and there's a minority of them, how will that profit the deep state? So there's internal inconsistency, and some of the explanations are just blatantly, insane. I've heard one that, boy, what the vaccine does, it gets into the genes. It actually modifies the genetic system in the body, so the man and the human beings are no longer human, because it builds itself, it gets into the genetic system, it becomes as one of the genes, and therefore it changes you so that you're no longer a human being. And since Christ came to die for people, for human beings, and you being vaccinated, you're no longer a human being. Therefore, you will go into perdition, because you're no longer a human person because of the vaccination. And some folks do buy into that. This is beyond your normal ridiculous, folks. And it shames me that people think, well, and some Christians say, well, for some thinking atheists, well, Christians are idiots. That's what we're telling you. Christians are a bunch of idiots. They just buy into that stuff. And I said, well, wait a minute. Of course we're not. Even Paul says, not many of you wise by human standards, not many noble, not many wealthy, and so forth. I understand we're the scum of the earth. We're not necessarily the brightest tools in the entire neighborhood. And most Christians are fairly kind of, pedestrian and so forth. And I'm one of them. I'm not, am I accused? Probably, I don't know. But very on the level of, I don't know, just a very average person. However, we don't have to buy into completely wild theories to look for explanation of what's going on. All right? vaccinations are frantic attempts by all governments who are saying that their population is already being reduced. What are you saying? Well, the vaccines are the instrument to get rid of the COVID is already doing that. We're losing people. I mean, Russia presently, right now, because of this very severe anti-vax propaganda, and many people have bought into that. In Russia, we have over 1,000 people dying daily. And the great majority of them, 99%, never vaccinated. Right? Because they believe, oh, that's Bill Gates, that's chipization. Yeah, I'd be tracked. You're already tracked. You have your cell phone, fool. No, it's something evil. It's something dehumanizing. You don't understand, Ronald. You don't understand all of the possible side effects from this vaccine. I said, well, my response is does anybody understand the full impact of the side effects and repercussions from this COVID thing? COVID is right now killing people in Marseille. You say, well, the vaccines make it worse. Yeah, and so you kind of, and it all goes all around. And I understand, I probably won't change your mind if you're an anti-vax person, but at least my purpose is here to stir your noble minds. I'm talking to believers, and to see whether your presuppositions or your mindset is necessarily biblical, or maybe you have inherited some extra scriptural or even anti-scriptural tradition of how to look at the events. You know, religious people have been conditioned not to use their brains in religion. And that's the only, by the way, explanation. How can otherwise smart and shrewd people, businessmen who are really good at what they're doing, become members of charismatic churches? You ever thought of that? I mean, I've seen some really good and smart businessmen who attend charismatic churches where they, by definition, speak unspeakable gibberish all the time. How can you buy into that? Well, because it's religion. And once you get into that mode, and there's another side to it I need to mention right now. In my notes, I write this: conspiracy theories meet some demand which we have, inherent demand in our soul somewhere, our thirst for dualism, or for seeing good opposing evil on a grand scale. This is how it works, okay? As I said, there's no water in the faucet. Well, it's because some bad people did it on purpose with evil intentions. So we've got to fight this evil. So we almost have this demand in our hearts to see some mythological battle between good and evil, because it just makes us feel good. We're part of there's a matrix, there's an evil system, deep state, and we're fighting this, friends. We're not like other sheeple. We are in the know. We are warriors. We're Jedis, and that kind of, it feeds this desire to be counted, okay? Because you oppose a whole machinery of manipulation and suppression in the face of vaccination in the minds of many people, all right? And one other thing is that this approach, when you're into conspirological explanations, everything that's taking place, you must remember that it doesn't take sophisticated conspiracy explanations to explain the level of idiocy and otherwise bad things around us, okay? Conspiracy theories fed mind thinks that it's always Jesuits, it's always Masons, it's always some group of evil people plotting. It doesn't necessarily take, well, sometimes people do plot things. They do. But the point is that we also, because of this total depravity, which affects all of us, we see a lot of incompetence, a lot of sinning, a lot of just not being fit for the office that they're occupying, people forgetting things, messing up things, and such things. It just does not necessarily take some evil genius behind all these messy events that we're seeing around us. All right, so that's the shortest explanation. So the liberal division of the mind and heart must be fought. And here's my 2 cents on how to overcome this propensity of the religious mind to be conspiracy theorist. All right, keys to overcome: logic, return of logic in the rightful place in churches. All right, non-contradictory, consistent, propositional preaching and teaching in churches must be exercised by teaching elders. Scripture presented as a consistent, non-contradictory information which is to be processed by our minds, understood, believed, trusted, it's the same thing, and obeyed. All right? That's what the Scriptures is for. So that we read, we understand. We cannot be obedient to something we don't understand. We must understand it. And in order to understand, the message must be coherent. It must make sense. We all know this expression. This doesn't make sense. It must make sense. It must be logical. It must be consistent. It must be rational. And in my humble opinion, if we approach Scriptures with a rational mind, understanding that is the divine Logos, who is God's wisdom, par excellence, eternal, everlasting wisdom, which speaketh in His inspired word, and it is the light, it is logic, and so forth, then maybe we should be less prone to wild and frankly crappy conspiracy explanations of vaccinations. All right? This is my take on the problem. I hope it was at least thought-provoking. And if so, I've achieved the purpose. Well, may the Lord bless you all, folks. See you next time. And please be praying for me. I mean, I'm still fighting this bronchitis. It must be some Jesuit conspiracy, to put me down. God bless you.